Welcome back to another UNC football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me, as she almost always does when we talk UNC football recruiting, our very own Miss Deana King. And Deana, this is the last time in a football recruiting podcast that we're going to discuss the 12 young men we're going to hit on in this podcast, because guess what? They all will arrive in Chapel Hill this weekend and formally begin the first stage of their 2021 football season as early enrollee freshmen. 12 kids out of the 18. And if you want to really go by the way Carolina's doing it, 13 of the 19 will be on campus because they continue to include Tony Grimes in the class of 2020. So, Deana, these are kids that you have followed very closely for years. You know several of them really well. When you get to this stage every year with some of these kids that you know well and you've seen since they were, before they could shave, playing football, what's it like for you knowing that RahRae and Drake and Keyshawn and all those guys are going to formally be Tar Heels in a few days?
I've been doing some follow-ups before they get to Chapel Hill, and basically, when I get through with the interview, I tell them, I've enjoyed covering them during their high school years, and I can't wait till to cover them in their college years. I wish them the best of luck. Thank them for being so helpful and just being, a lot of kids, they get hounded a lot by the media, the recruiting sites and everything, and the bigger name, the more stars they have, the more people that are constantly in contact with them, trying to get information. And I just tell them I appreciate, their being really open and honest with me and stuff. So it's kind of sad that I don't get to see them play their senior year in high school. But I'm happy for them that they're going on and getting to do their dream of playing college football.
Before we get into the 12 kids that we're going to hit on quickly, is this class maybe particularly special to you for the UNC group, because it's a large class? Usually there's 6 or 7 kids that might enroll early. Now we're talking 12, not including Grimes. And we didn't really know Grimes until the summer, when Jacob and I went up there for a camp, and a few days later you went up there for his commitment announcement, and then we've gotten to know him and his dad and stuff pretty well since then. But these kids, the personalities, RahRae, Keyshawn, the number of times that you've been around Drake, Caleb Hood is someone that I know you've grown very fond of, his game and who he is, and of course the lineage he has with his dad. Is this maybe the most special group of early enrollees that you've covered for Carolina?
I would say yes. And maybe the reason is, in years past, Carolina didn't have this many homegrown kids, to be honest. And Mac has slowly started just dominating in-state. And, all these kids, I believe, Sutton, Jones, and we'll say Grimes and Stevenson, all the rest are North Carolina kids. And with NC Preps, I cover North Carolina kids. So, of course, I've seen these kids play when they're sophomores and freshmen and on up, and seen them at camps and spend a lot of time with them at these camps and combines and 7-on-7. So I would say yes. I've had some really good relationships with these kids. Like I said, they've been a fun group to cover. I mean, they've been very entertaining and very social media savvy. Keyshawn and RahRae and I'll throw in Dontavious Nash, because he's someone that a lot of people forget about, but he was the first one. So he technically is the ringleader that started this big wave of this class of 2021, but they all have their different attributes, outgoing, and then there's some that are kind of on the quiet and everything. It's a good range.
And Sutton and Stevenson, that you mentioned, they're enrolling in the summer. We were there for when Dontavious actually committed. It was the first and so far only Mac Brown Showtime camp,
That seems
which was
forever.
called the Freak Show under their Fedora. Yeah, it was a year and a half, more than a year and a half ago now. It was 19 months ago. And Dontavious committed at the end of the camp, and I got an interview with him, and you talked to him. We got some photos, and I remember when it ended, we were like, man, that's a long time from now, but it's really flown. And he takes a lot of pride. We'll start with Dontavious. He takes a lot of pride in being the first guy. And he's not RahRae, he's not Keyshawn, but he's got personality. And I think there's a stability within that a lot of the kids like. And he did under the radar. He did a really good job helping to put this class together.
Yeah, and he's going to join the Rude Boys, so he has a little attitude.
He's got some swag.
He's got a lot of confidence. I've seen him in the camps. He plays basketball, so Dre Bly's going to do wonders with this kid.
Okay, one other thing on Dontavious, because we're going to hit on all 12 of these kids fairly quickly. The thing about Dontavious that impresses me is that he's kind of mature. Sometimes kids that commit early are mature. They just kind of know what they want. They know where they want to go. They block everything else out. And we've talked to him, I don't know how many times in these 19 months, but it almost always comes up where I'm getting ready for UNC. Whether it was in the middle of last season when he was a junior or not, he's always kind of had an eye toward getting ready for arriving for this weekend. I would imagine of all the kids that show up, it's going to be as special for him as any of the other 11.
When I talk to him, he's always, and this is one thing about this group, working out, always trying to get better. That's a common theme with him. And Dontavious comes from a good athletic family situation where he plays basketball with his brothers. Gastonia has not been very Tar Heel friendly for UNC, and it was good for the Tar Heels to get another kid from Gaston County joining Kendall Carr from last year. So I think Dontavious is a sleeper type kid that, everybody talks about RahRae and Drake and Keyshawn and Power Eccles. But I think Dontavious, he's going to be a ball hawk for Dre Bly.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, the order that we're going in is it's a random order. I mean, it basically threw the names in a hat. We didn't literally throw the names in a hat, but let's just run through the list real quickly, and this is kind of how it rolled out. So that's how we're going to do these final 11 kids. Now, I know that you're very fond of RahRae Dilworth. You and RahRae developed a pretty cool relationship, and I would imagine he's one of the easiest people on the planet to develop a relationship with because he's such a nice, open, welcoming young man. So discuss that side of RahRae and then hit on the kind of athlete that the Tar Heels are going to get.
Now, I want to give you a comparison, but don't think of the negative side of this person. When RahRae enters a place, he reminds me a lot of Dennis Rodman, but without the negative, all kinds of stuff with Dennis Rodman. He's just full of energy, confidence, flair. I would do a Ric Flair woo when RahRae comes in here, because he is the center of attention. We went to a lot of camps and combines, and it was like RahRae was the superstar. He was the main guy there. Everybody wanted to be around RahRae. You look, we'd be at a camp and RahRae would be over there, and there'd be like 10 other kids all over there hanging out with him. And he has just been a really joy to watch and see him transform this whole summer. He's improved his times. He's probably the fastest kid that I've seen in person run a 40, and he's very, very confident in his abilities, and I'm anxious to see where they're going to play him. I could see him being one of these guys. I told you before, I would love to see RahRae with his speed be a return guy. And Coach Bateman ought to be just licking his chops like, I don't know where I'm going to play this guy. He can play so many things. I just can't wait to get a hold of him.
Nickel, either safety spot. I mean, really, there's a lot of places. I know that he's listed as a linebacker in Rivals, but he's, I think, 205 right now. But, they put 20 pounds on Tony Grimes, and he arrived in August. And by the time that by the time he took the field in the Orange Bowl, he had gained 20 pounds in the middle of the season, which is really hard to do. So I think there's a lot of places on that defense he can end up, and it could be a matter of just need where he's best utilized. Some of the other guys they're starting to load up on that nickel spot where they're really talented guys, but they're all flexible. I mean, Bateman loves Jaquarius Conley as a safety someday, but he was started at nickel the last 4 games of the year. So it will be interesting to see where RahRae ends up. And by the way, if we ever do a best of THI podcast, your Ric Flair woo won't make it. So Drake May, you've known Drake for a long time. You knew Luke. I mean, you've known their dad. You've been around that family in various capacities for quite some time. Drake flipped to Carolina from Alabama. I know he was just at a 7-on-7 event in Dallas this past weekend. So Drake's coming in. What are your thoughts on him? And how has he progressed in the last couple of years from where he was when he really was started on everybody's radar? We saw him at a freak show camp a few years ago to where he is now. Is he ready? I mean, I know Sam's the guy, obviously. Sam will be the guy this year, barring an injury. But where is Drake maybe, relatively speaking, to where Sam was at this time a couple of years ago?
You mentioned earlier, at the Coach Brown's, the whatever the show, what was it? That we seen, the kids, I can't think of it. It used to be the freak show. But it's Showtime. It was the one we've only done one, the Mac Brown Showtime camp. Yeah, Showtime. You stated, we all thought that Jefferson Boaz looked as the best quarterback, even possibly the best player at that camp because he did so good. And
hold on, let me interrupt. He was a tight end though at that camp. He didn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
Criswell was there, and Drake. But Boaz was running routes as a tight end and was Josh Downs was there. Boaz was very impressive, but that's another topic for another day. So go ahead. Yeah, I just want to clarify he wasn't throwing the ball that day.
Yeah, Drake was there, and I've just seen him. Drake just has this coolness factor. I mean, I've said it before. I think he's gonna be UNC Sunshine from the Titans. Remember the Titans? He has it. I really like Sam Howell. Sam Howell is going to do wonders this coming year and everything. But I think Drake is right there, and he's ready to be the next guy, hopefully. He's got a lot of competition. He's got Criswell. He's got Jefferson Boaz, and Drake's going to come in, and he's going to get to be there with Sam, and he's going to get to see Sam, and they're good friends anyway. So, the May name is, a UNC legacy and everything. And so he's got a lot of hype and pressure on him coming in, but I think he can handle it. He played on the major stage in Charlotte and actually played against Caleb Hood in the state playoffs last year. So I think Drake is going to be a really, really good quarterback for UNC.
But the pressure will be put on hold because he doesn't have to step in right away. After the national championship game the other night, they showed a picture of Mac Jones celebrating Bama's 2017 title, I think it was, and a little bit younger looking. He was new and he was behind dudes, lots of dudes, but he eventually got his opportunity and he's the guy for sure. Drake will have a chance to be the guy in 2022. And at that point, he will have been on campus for a year and a half, and he will have studied behind Sam for a good while, for almost a year. So I think at that point, if he ends up beating out Criswell, he certainly would be ready for that job. Keyshawn Silver is going to get an opportunity perhaps to play basketball. I mean, he says yes, but it's more and more difficult for kids to cross over now, especially with the the 46, 48-week-a-year commitment football players have to make to the sport. Regardless, Carolina's getting themselves an athlete up front with Keyshawn.
They talk about pass rush, and they've been kind of limited in that type on defense, getting good pass rush on the end. Keyshawn, he's the answer for that. You put him, and we saw him at the Showtime camp. He looked like just a man child down there, because he didn't participate. He just showed up.
Yeah.
He showed up in a tank top, and we were like, who in the heck is this? Because he was completely off the radar, and he's a social media freak, and he still puts on his Twitter when he was a 0-star, and he lets people know.
Yeah.
And so he's made himself into what he is now, full of energy. He's a defensive end / recruiting coordinator. I feel like UNC should put beside of him, because he's been one of the most vocal in the group. And I think there's a friendly competition on who was the recruiting guru of the bunch, and Keyshawn, full of confidence. He's gonna get some reps, I believe, this coming year. He's gonna get on the field, because Mac and Coach Bateman, all the defensive coaches, have shown that they're going to give these young guys chances to play if the guy in front of them is not doing their job.
Improving the 3-man pass rush is something that they need and want to do, and I think Keyshawn's a guy that can help them down the road in that respect. Gavin Blackwell's a guy that could get a chance early on, could get a look. We were told last August that we would see a lot of Josh Downs. We didn't really see a lot of him until the Orange Bowl, and voila, look what he did. Gavin Blackwell is a guy that knows Sam really well. He's from that whole Charlotte area. A lot of dudes down there can work out together when they're not in Chapel Hill. So, and Gavin, I think a lot of people think that Gavin is a dude that maybe isn't being talked about as much as some of the others, but he could really have an early impact in Chapel Hill.
I really don't know why that's the case for Gavin. I've liked Gavin. It may be because his size, and I'm getting to a point. Gavin Blackwell, 160, 165 pounds. Who won the Heisman a week ago? Yeah. It don't matter what size you are. That kid, Gavin, I'm saying, I'm not going to compare him to Smith, but watch out. I mean, he's played with Sam, and now he played high school with Sam, and he's played 7-on-7 ball with Drake. They had a great connection and everything in Dallas, and that 7-on-7. Gavin's put on some weight. He's filled out. He's more muscular. I seen him this past summer. He's dependable. It's just, I think him and Drake have this special connection where he can just look at Drake and Drake knows where to throw it. If that tells you something, some special type of connection. But Gavin, Carolina's recruiting receiving core is so, I know they lost Yami, but they've got a lot of talent, and Coach Galloway wants a lot of guys because they throw them in there, they run them in and out. So Gavin's going to compete for some playing time.
And he's going to have 7.5 months to add to his body and get things fine-tuned and maybe, be a little bit more solid, a little bit more weight and ready for the punishment that he would take if he gets plenty of reps next season. Kobe Paysauer, I guess is how we pronounce his last name. He never flinched when we said Paysauer before, but Max said Paysauer. So he actually went down to South Carolina and Gaffney to play his senior year because there was no public school football in North Carolina. Had a really good year down there. Got some very valuable experience. Good for him. So he got his season out of the way. He made a choice most of the guys didn't make, and that was to go somewhere else and play. And it really wasn't feasible for a lot of the ones to do that. So he's He's arriving this weekend as well. What kind of player can people expect from Kobe?
Kobe had a great year for Gaffney. He made some big plays, some outstanding catches. He's just a great. He's about 6'2", 6'3". He runs great routes. He's got good hands. Go up and get it. So he had a really big stat year at Kings Mountain because they made a really long playoff run. So he had a big year for the Mountaineers, and then he went to Gaffney to get his season in. I'm not sure what his final stats were, but Carolina's going to get a dependable receiver, just another weapon to add in that receiving core for the Tar Heels.
Power Eccles has the perfect name for a linebacker, and you love his game. A lot of people do. We didn't talk to him a whole lot. He's not someone who's the most vocal of the players in the class, but you've been on him for a few years, and you absolutely love this guy's game. What kind of player are the Tar Heels getting?
Well, you said that right. He is not social media. He's one of the quiet guys, and he lets his actions speak on the field. He's been the best defensive player in the state, the AP Defensive Player of the Year. He's won a state title. He helped Vance win that state championship back in 2019, I believe. So it's kind of hard time frame, since we don't have a 2020, but big time hitter, linebacker, position of need. With Chaz graduating and Gimmel getting up in, he'll be a senior and everything, I believe. And they need linebackers, and I think Power is going to be counted on heavily.
You love Caleb Hood's game. You love what Caleb Hood's potential is. I think you believe that he is vastly underrated and flying well below the radar. He's going to start out at running back. He can do a lot of different things. I know that he's been rated as a dual threat quarterback, I guess, by rivals, but he's a running back. You were with him just a couple months ago at a camp and got to spend some time watching him up close and talking with him. You've talked to him, I don't know how many times in the last 4 months. So what kind of guy, what kind of athlete, and eventually what kind of player are the Tar Heels getting with Caleb Hood?
The kid was destined to be a Tar Heel. Caleb Hood's name would be right there. I've seen lots of pictures of him being at Keenan when he was a little kid. His dad, Earl, played at Chapel Hill. There's no secret. I've been very high on him ever since I've seen him play. I've had him on my all-state team as an athlete several years. Because there's been so many great quarterbacks in this state. Caleb, I just felt like he was just the best athlete in the state. He can play so many things, and now he's going to show his versatility as he's played quarterback most of his whole life, and he's switching to running back. And we've seen him in person. He's really, really took it to the next level to get prepared to be a running back. And me and Jacob was at the Raleigh VTO, and you guys saw in person with the videos, we made it specific to get him on tape doing running back drills and to see the power that he has. I think he's got a good future in front of him, and Matt's going to let him start at running back, and we'll see what happens.
And there's opportunity there. Even with Ty Chandler, the transfer from Tennessee coming in, there's still opportunity. They used 3 backs 2 years ago. This past season, they used 2. And maybe if there would have been a third guy that could have given them a lot of really good reps, they may have gone there. Maybe Devonte and Michael were just so good, there was no point in playing a third guy. But Caleb will certainly get an opportunity to play. J.J. Jones, a wide receiver from Myrtle Beach, one of the few kids in this class that are not from North Carolina. You talked to him a lot in the last few months. You got to see him over the summer in some events. What kind of guy is Carolina getting with him, and what kind of player is Carolina getting with J.J. Jones?
Tall, speedy guy. I mean, I think he's faster than a Bo Corrales. He's got the height, and I saw him play, and this summer, and he got to play his season down there at Myrtle Beach, and they had a really good high-powered passing attack with him and Clemson commit Adam Randall. So JJ, Kobe, and Gavin, UNC has stopped their receiving core very, very good. I mean, it's like Coach Galloway got a gold mine with them three. So
you can envision them on a field at the same time too. That's
yeah,
the thing. It's a nice mix.
Yeah, they all do. They all kind of have their different little niche of what they do. I mean, I think Gavin's the fastest of them. JJ's the tallest of them, and then Kobe's a little mixture of both. I mean, he's just, you don't want to get three guys of the same type of their strong point. So, but JJ, he was the last one to decide that he was going to early enroll because he's a basketball player.
Yeah.
So a lot of
he really had to think it through too. That was a tough decision for him.
A lot of these kids are multi-sport, and I believe that helps. And Mac has even said he loves recruiting multiple sport athletes. It helps them.
We have three more to go. Defensive line is a need, always will be a need. And with Javari Ritzy, they got themselves a guy that can play up front. And so what's up with his game? What can fans expect to see from him down the road? And what kind of player is Carolina getting right out of the gate with Javari Ritzy?
He's totally opposite of RahRae. He's not very vocal on social media. I went and covered his commitment when he committed to UNC. Very, very good kid and good family. His mom is a track coach, and so Javari run cross country. So how many defensive linemen do you see run cross country in high school? So athletic, he's going to be another kid that Coach Cross can mold into that defensive line. I mean, Mac's signature of those big top five teams that he had were defensive line dominated 1 and 2 deep, and Coach Cross he's gonna have him a nice stable defensive lineman that he can just keep them fresh and keep pressure on the quarterbacks. And unlike probably the first couple years where they really lacked depth there, Javari's going to bring high energy. He loves to get after the quarterback, and so Glenn High School was primed for a very good season this year with him and RahRae, and then you throw in 2022 linebacker Albert Red back there. They were going to have a really good season, but he opted out to early enroll as well. So a good pickup.
Yeah, the issues that Carolina had this past season, allowing points very late in the first half, Jay Bateman and Mac Brown both told us that, a big part of that was lack of depth, that they got tired late in the half, and they gave up points, I think, in 9 of the 12, at the end of 9 of the 12 first halves, very, very late. 7 were touchdowns, or it was 10 of 12. So adding more guys up front, keeping them fresh up front, which makes everything better behind them, will be an important part of this program's continued growth and development on the field. Diego Pounds is an offensive lineman, and they don't have a huge OL class because they got a lot of young offensive linemen in the program. But he's a guy, I guess he was the last commitment in the class. He's a local kid from Raleigh over at Millbrook High School. But he's someone that, as we watch the committed kids in this class recruit other kids, it was really fun and interesting to see them kind of galvanize around Diego in those last weeks, where everybody in the industry thought he was going to Penn State, and he ends up staying close to home. And he's not only going to be a Tar Heel, but he's going to be there this weekend.
You mentioned the recruiting. Diego, another basketball player.
Yeah.
all
And
summer.
impressive hops too, by the way.
Yeah. Dunking basketball, jumped off the diving board, done flips. But you saw Keyshawn and Dontavious Nash, and I'll throw Gabe Stevens in. Gabe is not early enrolling, but all those guys played basketball, and Rock Hill was like the basketball capital around here because that's where all the basketball was, the AAU and stuff was being played, and they were down there. And so Diego was around Carolina guys about all summer, and he like you said, Penn State was really thinking that he was going to be a part of their class. But you look at it, you see what Mac's doing, and it's right up the street. He lives in Raleigh, so he's a local kid, very powerful. I saw him in his commitment video just take a football and just rip it, and that has to take some strength. And then Mac talked about the agility that the kid has. So he a lineman, and we know Carolina's kind of set for offensive line. They got everybody basically coming back, and then they signed some kids last year that's gonna to help them with depth too. So Diego might not have to rush him into some playing time and let him develop under Coach Searles and get his body right under Coach Hess.
Last kid, but certainly not least, the Rivals 100 prospect, DeAndre Boykins, rated as a running back, but Mac asked these kids, the ones that play multiple positions, where do you want to start out at, basically? And he said he wants to play defense. So DeAndre Boykins.
Rivals was really high on DeAndre. They had him as all-purpose back.
Yeah, all-purpose back, yeah.
And he can play several positions. I've talked to him. He's been really working on his body and getting ready. Wants to play nickel. I mean, he already has said that that's where he wants to play. And, you got to admire a kid that possibly run the ball all in high school. And, the glory positions are quarterbacks and running backs. Nobody knows about linemen and maybe defensive guys, but he wants to play nickel. And so,
you know what that tells me? He's got the mind of a football player. Not saying the running backs don't. Clearly, the running backs do. But and I also like the fact that he's a guy that plays different positions. I'm a big fan of guys that play defense that also played offense. Look at how much Chaz talked about how playing quarterback helped him, obviously. And then Devonte actually said that he was aided as a running back because he spent so much time on the defensive side of the ball in high school, multiple positions. So the more guys you have that have been all over the field, I think the easier it is for them to adjust, focusing on one position, because they spend so much time playing multiple positions before. If they just invest everything into one position, the development's usually very, very quick once they get to college. And I would think that with DeAndre, if he sticks at nickel, and that's where they say, okay, just spend all spring and all August learning the nickel spot, I think we'll see quick growth from him.
Well, that's a common theme with Mac. He likes multi-sport athletes, kids that can play multiple positions. I mean, this class, they have a lot of that. I mean, I'm anxious to see where the coaching staff puts all these kids because, I mean, definitely the talent level and this class is going to be special. I mean, I was thinking about it earlier. This group, 2020 was a start. And you add in this group, and then some of the kids that you're seeing Carolina in the midst for 2022. Look out, yeah. Carolina. There's some good football on the horizon for the Tar Heels.
And look north.
Kids play at their potential. At their potential.
And UNC fans need to look north. Look at the Commonwealth of Virginia. There could be a lot of kids from that class, from that state, I think, end up as part of the class of 2022. 12 of the 18 members of the class of current members of the class of 20. There may be one more. We'll hit on that on another podcast. And of course, Mac likes to tell you there's 19 because he loves including Tony Grimes in this group because he was actually one of the more recent commits in 20. They had a lot of dudes already committed before Tony did at the end of June. So they will be on campus this weekend, formally beginning their Carolina football careers. It's always an exciting time to see kids leap from high school into college, especially for a lot of these guys that didn't have a season this year. So they've got to be chomping at the bit to get in there and just do football stuff with an organized unit. So it'll be pretty exciting for those kids.
Just that bunch is really excited. And talking to them, they were so excited about how the team finished the year. I know, even though they lost at Texas A&M, you could see that Carolina is getting there, and they're one step closer. And the kids, I don't think the kids paid much attention to all the hoopla about winning the Orange Bowl or whatever. And some fans think, so-and-so lost, so they'll pick this other team.
Doesn't matter much.
Kids don't look at that.
For a bunch of young kids who haven't really experienced life yet, when it comes to recruiting, a lot of them do have a broad perspective. They have a big picture perspective. And I think that's what's important about this class, because most of these kids committed before the 2020 season started, before the Orange Bowl process began. So they were coming off 7-6. And we know what some of the other schools were saying about Carolina recruiting trail and about MAC, but they believed before the Orange Bowl run, and now the belief is off the charts. We know what kids in the class of 21 or 22 are saying, and even 23. So winning over the long haul obviously matters. One specific game doesn't make or break anything. I think these kids recognize the trajectory of this program, and they are part of the trajectory. This is, the class ended up, I think, 16th or 17th in rivals, but that's just because of the numbers. If they had comparable kids and were up to 22 and 23, the ranking would have been a lot higher, but they cut everything off at 18. And like I said, they may add a 19th kid, and we'll be on to talk about that here in the next week or two, because you're continuing to get more information on him. She's Deana King. I'm Andrew Jones. This has been a long football recruiting podcast, longer than usual, but it was certainly worthy to pay the kind of respect to these kids who have been fantastic dealing with us. We appreciate it very much, and certainly looking forward to see what kind of players they become at the college level, which is always fun to see how these kids continually grow their careers and what they turn out to become. And I know you'll be excited to watch a lot of these guys too, Deana, because you have relationships with them. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Sure do. And thanks everybody for checking in, and go check us out at Tar Heel Illustrated.
Yes, go to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Check us out for $8.33 a month. You can become a member and have access to literally everything we do. Podcasts are just a small part of it. She's Deana, I'm AJ. Hit notification bell if you like this video, and share it with people, because this is the place to go for UNC football, basketball, and recruiting. Thanks for stopping by.